This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Joe Brown's honor to have you back on the show. A lot of things happened this past weekend with the March for Our Lives and the fallout from that, as well as what was going on with the president. There's always something in the news going on with Trump. But I want to talk to you about what your thoughts were about the March for Our Lives and your thoughts about this issue of gun control.
Well, all right. Let me say this. It sounds somewhat specious, but there is a reality. These kids claim that they have a right to be safe. It is an extension of this disgusting entitlement that I see in this generation where everything should come to them because they want it. You have no entitlement to be safe and live on the planet Earth. You can get hit by an asteroid, meteorite. You can get wiped out by a tornado, typhoon, hurricane, tsunami. You can get wiped out by a volcano. You can get wiped out by lightning strike, if I haven't already said that, earthquake. You can get hit by hail. You can get bitten by something. You have no safe environment. It is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is history shows that unless you're willing to meet aggression with force to resist it, you are not safe. So there are people that died so that you could be safe, so they feel entitled to safety, but they don't want to put back in it. So they want to rely on what to make them safe? Oh, the police? Well, guess what? Maybe some of their same fellow citizens who have a deep suntan might find that they don't want to call the police when they need to be safe because instead of being protected, they get wiped out and brutalized and killed because they had a cell phone. All right? Hey, some people have a different situation. You talk about let's get the guns out of the way, and what did you do? You still haven't gotten the unmanned cretins who didn't have a dad around or a society around that would put man training in them so they could control the violence. You see, 50 years ago, I can remember when the cry was war is a man thing. So the way to stop it is to raise boys like girls so they'll just be emotional instead of being violent. Well, they've gotten that kind of society. They've emasculated the republic. It's already been, endemic in our neighborhoods. That's a matriarchy. There are no guys around. There's no dad in the pad, and that's bad. But, well, what they've gotten is what they asked for 50 years ago in one way or another, and that's not good because here we are talking about violence. You see, this man training that people talked about produced toxic masculinity was also the device that socialization and acculturation of the human developed and evolved in lockstep with human physiology as it evolved. So you take the apex predator on the planet Earth that kills better than anything else that lives here, and you put in his own head the main control factor by appropriately socializing and acculturating. It's like that old Star Wars thing where Yoda's riding on Luke's back and he's whispering in his ear, a Jedi stays strong, a Jedi controls his anger, he must. A Jedi does not go to the dark side of the Force. A Jedi is not emotional. A Jedi controls himself. A Jedi is interested in the many. You see, you change Jedi to man, and that's what you're supposed to get when you get man training. Somebody, mom, who is also able to put into this, like the Spartan mothers did. They said, son, come back with your shield on it, do or die, because she perceived that she had an interest in the outcome. The people needed protection, and her son was growing up to be one of the protectors. Men protect and serve. Women are a resource. Women and children in the lifeboat first. That's the way it goes. That's our task in life. We can get violent, but you see, our man training is supposed to acculturate and socialize us so we do not get violent in an inappropriate situation and we become men of peace. But when necessary, we can, when called upon, behave bravely and courageous. Now, I'm looking at this thing here, and I just started thinking about some of the logical conclusions. People were talking about violence. Let's look right back down to Florida. This was yesterday. Some youth went off and killed somebody else. No reason to do it. You know what he used?
What?
Baseball bat. He didn't use a gun. That's another example. You got a cretin that's out of control. He can go Stone Age on you. Did you see this thing in the news where some dingbat principal doesn't want armed teachers, but he's installed in each classroom a bucket full of river stones / rocks so the kids can throw rocks at somebody if they come in there to try to shoot them up?
Yes, sir.
Then there is the real bottom line to this whole thing. The military's got a saying. It says, bullets kill a lot of people, but only high explosive kills enough. And most of the casualties in any war since the Napoleonic days, most of them are the result of artillery. And guess what the main artillery is in U.S. howitzer and cannon shells and for most of the rest of the world? It's in part, you know where you can buy it? Go to your home and garden store, and it's the most common fertilizer in America. You can buy 25 pounds of it for about $10. It's called ammonium nitrate. It's exactly what Timothy McVeigh used 200 pounds of to blow up the courthouse in Oklahoma City. He got 250-some people. So there are no controls on that. You don't need ID. Just walk it by it. Sheriff's department around here, when they want to blow something up, they go to the lawn and garden store down 3rd Street, or is it, down Thomas, I think, and they buy 25 pounds of fertilizer and they go blow it up. So if you take the one tool away, that doesn't change the cretin who can go to something even more dangerous. Now, if you want to talk about numbers of kids getting killed, I've got a proposition. That so many more of them get killed by bad driving and immaturity behind the wheel. Let's raise the driving age to 21. Let's make the first driving test a lot more detailed and strict so we can cut out those who are bad drivers. That will promote ecology, the use of public transportation, and keep the kids out of mischief since they don't seem to have the maturity to control themselves these days. And as I said, let's ban cell phones for those at least those that have a text function. You have to be over 21 because why? So many of them want to commit suicide because somebody texted them something that got them bent out of shape. They're weak. And, oh, heavens no, they want to exercise this prerogative, this entitlement to be safe. Well, let's make them safe. So it gets kind of crazy. Now let's get back to this fundamental thing about assault rifles. See, this is sheer propaganda, and it's misleading. There aren't assault rifles out there on the streets. Let me be clear. The first qualification for a real assault rifle is that it is a full auto machine gun. If it is not a machine gun, it's not an assault rifle. Full automatic weapons for the military come in three types: full service, light, or general purpose machine guns. They fire what used to be known as a full power rifle caliber. 7.62 NATO or old 30 AUD-6 or 7.92 Mauser or 303 British. You have to make that weapon pretty heavy, like the bar that the U.S. Army used to use in World War II, World War I, or the British Bren gun. They weighed 19 going on 20 pounds. It took that much weight for it to be controlled. Then on the other end of the scale, you had submachine guns that fired pistol caliber ammunition, like 45 caliber Thompson, the 9mm Schmeiser, or MP5 or Uzi. Those are called submachine guns. In the middle, you had a new thing called the intermediate cartridge. It was halfway in power between a full standard rifle cartridge and a pistol cartridge. And that is a cartridge of reduced power that allows it to be fired full auto in a weapon that weighs from maybe 6 to maybe 8 or 9 pounds and controllable by the average soldier. The first assault rifle was named that by one and only, none other than Adolf Hitler. They had come up with this thing in 1943, and the German army was issuing these things to its troops, and they called it MP-43, machine pistol or submachine gun, 1943, to hide it from Hitler. He got wind of it. He was storming about it since he didn't approve of the concept. But when he went out, they let him fire it, and he fell in love with it, and he said, this is a new thing. This is the Sturmgewehr. In other words, the storm rifle or assault rifle. Hitler named it. And once he named it, they changed the designation from machine pistol 43 to Sturmgewehr 44. And it fired a reduced caliber 7.92 Kurtz round. It's quite similar to what the Russians use, their 7.62 by 39 Komblok round. The Russians had actually invented that round and had what was a semi-auto weapon that fired it, so it was easier to control than the U.S. Army's M1 Garand. Now that, understand, is a rifle that the great General Patton called the best battlefield implement ever invented. But now I'll get back to that in a second. Mm-hmm. Russians came up with the AK-47. The U.S. did not get the idea, and they wound up adopting a turkey known as the M14 that you can buy now, civilian-wise, called the M18. Nobody objects to that. It's a full-powered rifle, but very few people can control it in anything other than semi-auto, and the U.S. Army never issued it in anything other than semi-auto. It takes a 20-round magazine. The M1 Garand took an 8-round magazine. However, in 1908, Browning and Winchester started selling the Model 8, which was invented by John Browning. And it took a 5-round clip with 15, 20, and 30-round clips available through the mail 100 years ago. It was quite popular with law enforcement and with the ordinary hunter. In the 1950s, Remington came out with the 740 Game Master, which is semi-automatic, 30 caliber. It's a heavy caliber. It ordinarily comes with a 5-round magazine, but for 60-some years, you've been able to get 10 and 20-round clips for that thing, or magazine. Now, guess when they came up with the AR-15? They came up with that thing in 1952. That was 55 years ago. It is the oldest serving rifle in U.S. military history, the longest serving one. Now, the thing about the caliber of the AR-15 is it's a 22 caliber rifle, and there has been a long debate in the U.S. military in that particular caliber in the hunting world is suitable only for varmints, rabbits, squirrels, gophers, groundhogs, and general stuff like that. In most states, it's considered too small to hunt a 100-pound deer with. The military says it doesn't have enough stopping power on one half of the field, and the other half says we don't want it to, because if we took the old-time stuff, you could kill somebody quite easily with that, and you just leave him there and rot. But if you will wound somebody, it takes 8 to 9 to 10 people to take care of it. We'd rather wound. So there has been that internal debate about the 5.56 by 45 NATO cartridge, which in civilian guys is known approximately as the 223. It's a 22 caliber thing. Is most suited for farming, not people. And if you really wanted to do some damage to somebody, you'd get a 12-gauge pump shotgun. Now, if you have practiced with a 12-gauge shotgun, a pump, you can do some very, very interesting things. I've seen people do this, and I can do it personally. If you've got low recoil buckshot, and you really know how to work a pump, and you work with it a lot, you can get 5 rounds off with all 4 empty cases still in the air before the first one hits the ground. It sounds like a machine gun when you do that, but it's not. It's an old-time pump. And remember when we come out with the pump, Winchester came out with the thing in 1892, and then they had a famous one that went for a long time that came out in 1897. That's been more than 120-some years ago. So we're not talking about anything new. I have seen people with a revolver. They've got a guy named Jerry Mikulik with Smith & Wesson. He's a demonstration shooter. He can take a revolver and get off 8 shots on target in less than a second. It just goes, boom, sounds faster than a machine gun. It's firing faster than a typical military machine gun. He just did it with his finger. He can't fire a 45 auto, semi-auto that fast because the mechanism can't keep up with his finger. I've seen people who with a semi-auto shotgun, Browning number 5, that's 110 years old, I've seen them work it so fast on the trigger finger, the action can't keep up with it. I can work an AR with my fingers, no additional stuff on it. I can get 7, 8, 50 shells up in the air before the first hits the ground. Well, most of the time, 4 or 5. But, you see, that's with anything. I've seen a guy do a demonstration with an 1873 single-action Colt and 45, fanning this thing, get 5 shots on target in less than a second, draw the second one, and get another 5 shots on target. That's 10, so he's got 10 rounds on target in under 2 seconds. Now, what are you going to do about that? And then here's the other thing. I've taken martial arts for 50-some years. There are a number of people in this town I know that have been taking it for a long time. A very good, close, and personal friend of mine that worked as an executive on the show. He is a grand master. We can walk in someplace and kill you very quickly, very quietly. Nobody will know, and there's nothing you can do about it unless you have the level of expertise that we do. And we go into schools all the time and talk to the kids, but we don't kill anybody.
Right.
See, I saw a magazine at a magazine stand not long ago, and it was just, it was horrified that 12 and 14-year-old boys in the Middle East were coming to school with AK-47s and a ceremonial knife stuck down in the front of their belt, and actually one of them had 2 hand grenades hooked up and spare magazines. So they were horrified that these kids were armed. But I looked at it and I said, oh my, they come to school with real, fully automatic machine gun type assault rifles. They don't kill each other. We can't let kids go to high school with a nail file because they might take somebody out. What's the difference? It's man training. Now, let's do another bonking. AR does not stand for assault rifle.
Okay.
In 1952, a guy named Eugene Stoner invented the design, and he patented it. He sold the design to Fairchild Aircraft Company, which assigned it to their division of weaponry known as Armalite. AR stands for Armalite. Well, somewhat later, Colt bought it out. Bought out the Fairchild division. Now, they offered, in 1954, they offered the AR design to the U.S. Army, and they did not select it. They selected the miserable semi-auto, 20-round magazine, 7.62 caliber M14, which they kept for 6 years before they got rid of it. Well, 1962, General Curtis LeMay, United States Air Force Commanding General, wanted the guards who were armed with M1 carbines to have something newer, because the M1 carbines that everybody has got in their garage or closet, if they're over a certain age, because you could get them for less than $10 through the mail. Well, he wanted his old carbines replaced, so he caused the Air Force to buy from Colt these AR-15. When the military got them, they became known as the M16. The current rifle for the military now is a carbine version of that, known as the M4. That follows in sequence behind the M1 carbine of World War II fame that everybody's got one of in their closet, or at least granddad does. And then there was an M2, which was a fully automatic version of that, not semi. And both of them took 15 and 30 round magazines. There was an M3, which was experimental, and the M4 is the current standard issue to the U.S. military. It has a 14.5-inch barrel, which is illegal to possess under most circumstances. What you can get is a semi-auto version that looks like it, but it's got a 16-inch barrel, or if it has a 14-inch barrel and a half-inch barrel, it's got a permanently affixed gadget of some sort on the muzzle to make it 16 inches from the base of the chamber to the end of the muzzle. The attraction to this design, which is now America's most popular rifle, it comes in all sorts of calibers, is that it is a modern rifle. The rifle that everybody associates with hunting is the bolt action.
Okay.
Mauser invented a bolt action way, way back when. And in no less than 1842, the Prussian Army adopted the first military bolt action. It was a pin-fire weapon. They called it the needle gun. Not pin-fire, it was called the needle gun, and the Prussian Army adopted it in 1842. Stored up enough of them to equip their army in 1848. So that's how old everybody's typical hunting rifle is. Now, the Winchester lever action is newer than the bolt action. But the bolt action was popular in Europe. America had the lever action, the Spencer, which is quite an effective weapon. They issued a lot of them in the Civil War. In 1892, the U.S. decided to replace its trapdoor Springfield single shot rifle. 1892, they replaced it with their first bolt action known as the Craig Jorgensen. It fired a caliber known as 30-40 Craig. They didn't like it because it wasn't powerful enough. When they got into the Spanish-American War and got into the Philippines and got to dealing with the Moros, who didn't take kindly to it and ignored getting shot with it. So they sent over a lot of pump-action Winchester Model 97 shotguns to deal with the close-in threat. Now, again, that's probably the most dangerous thing you could shoot somebody with at close range. Let somebody go off with one who knows how to use it in a school, you'd really get a bloodbath. But, that's been around for 120 years. So what we get then is we have the Spanish-American War. The U.S. Army kind of got jacked around because the Cubans had a Mauser, the 1892 Mauser. So the U.S. liked it. They hooked up a deal with the German Mauser company to make one under license. It was known as the 30 caliber Springfield. They were paying the Mauser firm a license fee, which they stopped paying in World War I. But most hunting rifles that you see today are takeoffs off of the Mauser, the 1898 Mauser, which is what? 120 years old. Guess what? So if you want to get a perspective, if you look at all of the cowboy movies made in the 1950s, the black and white type, featuring John Wayne, Clint Eastwood et al., usually you see them using an 1892 Winchester. The perspective you should have is at the time they made these cowboy movies, that 1892 Winchester was a newer design than the AR-15 is today. It was only, 50-some years old. 56 years old. 57 years old. The AR is 65 years old. And it's just bringing it up to date. It uses modern manufacturing methods. People say, well, what about these high-capacity magazines that they have with it? Who needs 30 rounds? Well, they've had those same 20 and 30-round magazines available on the American market for more than 100 years for various semi-auto rifles that have a lot more stopping power than a 22 caliber Stoner design. So when you hear AR-15, it's not assault rifle. You've got some people with an agenda that have the news, and they are pulling all sorts of stunts on you. Another, we all remember Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. Zimmerman, who matched the profile of an OG gangster. He was in his late mid-20s, and he had numerous assaults on his record. Well, he shoots Trayvon. So they start talking about Zimmerman exercised his right of no retreat. Something has to be changed about that. That's wrong. This is evil. And then you had all of the black and white pundits talking about, we need to change this no retreat doctrine. Well, guess what? In spite of Anderson Cooper having great credibility, which he does not deserve, it was not Zimmerman that had the right of no retreat. It was the dead kid, Trayvon Martin, who had the right not to retreat. What happened is he's walking peacefully down the street because his father is there visiting a girlfriend. He's minding his own business, and this OG gangster type, Zimmerman, who is a Cubano, who had a lot of violence in his background, approaches him, comes up on him, and attacks him. And Trayvon had no duty to back up. When they get to struggling, and Trayvon sees the gun in Zimmerman's waistband, at that point he's being assaulted by someone he does not know with the ready and available means to render great bodily harm or death to him. Trayvon had the right under Florida law to take Zimmerman's life. He pounded Zimmerman's head into the sidewalk so Zimmerman would be disabled and unable to continue the assault. Well, at that point, Zimmerman becomes fearful for his own life, but you can't claim that when you are the one that put in motion what is developed into a life or death situation. But Zimmerman takes the gun and he shoots Trayvon Martin to death. And then you got a clown like Anderson Cooper misleading the public, talking about Zimmerman had the right of no retreat. They also came out with this castle doctrine, according to Anderson Cooper, and nobody picked it up. You don't have a castle doctrine unless you're inside a dwelling. And nobody was anywhere near inside a dwelling. You know what the Castle Doctrine developed, why it developed into a specifically stipulated part of the law? Because they had cases where, let's say, the homeowner is upstairs and early in the morning hears somebody break in. He goes down and he finds somebody burglarizing his home. He pulls a weapon on them. The person falls. There was an actual case in Florida where the burglar fell, broke his ankle, and sued the homeowner.
Wow.
So the law was clear in Florida. That's not going to happen. But to make sure that some idiot realized that, they put it to Castle Doctrine. Somebody breaks in your house, you know, it's a good idea to check to see who it is so you don't bag one of your kids who comes home drunk from college one night unexpectedly. But, you know, you don't have to sit there and assure yourself that these people, oh my, you know, I don't know this guy, all of this other stuff. In the Castle Doctrine, you break into somebody's house, you're on your own. They're not liable to you. It's the law in most states. It just wasn't stipulated to in formal code, but it's been the law here. No retreat. Every state but 8 of the 50 states had a no retreat rule in their law on self-defense. 8 states had that, and they came up with stupid stuff like, okay, you're walking home with your mother-in-law, your wife, and 3 kids, and somebody goes to hold you up. Well, in a no retreat state, if you're armed or, you know, karate or something, you can do something right there and stop it. In one of the 8 states or so that had the retreat doctrine, you had to turn around and run. So what are you supposed to do? Leave your mother-in-law and your wife and your kids there while you run off and leave them? So they had all kinds of crazy little add-ons to the law that was given to the jury. If you find, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that the defendant in this action who has raised the defense of self-defense took as much as 1 step backwards, that is a retreat sufficient for the purposes of this statute. It gets worse. If you find that the defendant in this cause raised 1 heel as though to retreat, that is sufficient for the purposes of the law. So most states just didn't have a retreat doctrine. You didn't have to retreat. I was a criminal court judge and a defense lawyer and a prosecutor for years and years. And what happens, guess what the charge to the jury is? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant in this cause has no duty to retreat. He might have and stood his ground against his assailant with no liability or no diminution of his right to self-defense. That's been the charge in all these states, except 8 of them in the Northeast and the, what do they call it, the New England area that decided to come up with these new ideas. So here you have Anderson Cooper blathering away about this nonsense, so we need to change the Castle Doctrine, which had nothing to do with Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. We need to get rid of no retreat because Zimmerman didn't have the right. It was Trayvon Martin, and guess what else you should learn out of that case? Guess what they told Trayvon's mother, please not reveal, because it might undermine the impact of the case. They convinced her that would help out her son's cause, wrongful death cause. You know what they didn't want her to say?
What?
That Trayvon's grandfather, at the time he was slain, was a lieutenant detective on the Miami Police Department. So was Dad going to visit a lady cop. Now, wouldn't that make a different change in it? You see how they manipulate you? These low-down scoundrels that have a point to make, so we rely on them for accuracy of news, and Trump's got a great word, fake news. That's what he's talking about. So they have the whole public, and, you know, half of the system thinks O.J. got away with murder. Well, guess what? I saw the evidence in the evidence room. Somebody I recruited to law school who was administrative law judge let me look through the whole thing at my leisure. I tape recorded every scrap of that case. They had no evidence on O.J. And there was a lot of evidence that implicated certain other people. The only reason you think O.J. did something is because that slime bag, Nancy Grace, who was breaking into the media with her irresponsible self, started talking about devastating evidence against O.J. when there was none. I said, well, what did they have against it? And then I tune in, and it's about the DNA evidence, and she's been talking about there's no way O.J.'s team can overcome this devastating evidence of DNA that clearly indicates he is the culprit. Well, I tape recorded it in my chambers. I was a bachelor. I wasn't going to fight this rush hour traffic because I'd stay a few hours and catch up on paperwork and look at this. What it said was the experts testified, the prosecution's own expert said, this isn't O.J. This sample here does not exclude approximately 96,000 people in the L.A. County area. What it indicates, somebody with a genetic background from guess where? The northeast Mediterranean area or Sicily.
Wow.
And then they wanted to say O.J.'s blood was found on the scene, but that didn't go anywhere because even the state expert said, well, that couldn't have really been deposited there by O.J. because it had our special brand of preservative we put in the serological sample we took from him with a hypodermic needle. And, oh, yeah, we do have to admit that that is, in fact, one of the forensic investigators who's got a sample of his blood in the evidence pouch. And for some reason, he brought it from the downtown forensics lab almost 30 miles back out to get to Brentwood, and he just happens to be walking in where the scene of the crime was. Oh, well, we can't really explain it.
Wow.
See, that kind of stuff was going on. But they mislead us. So they've got an agenda to push, and where that agenda comes in, you should understand. 50-some years ago, in the 60s, you have these things coming together. There was a Dr. Spock, nothing to do with Star Trek. He's a child psychologist. And he came up with the idea that it's wrong to thank children. You should never punish them. You should always reward them with unconditional love. Yeah, if you've got an hour and a half to explain to a kid why he shouldn't take a crayon and mark on the walls or get down out of a tree so he doesn't fall and break his arm, well, okay, yeah. But you see, that's ineffective and doesn't do the child any favor. So that was late 1950s to the early 60s. And then you have this thing that I call the beta boy phenomenon. That is white guys who were nerds and dorks and couldn't make it in the white man's world, even though they were white men. And they didn't like this, what they called outmoded model of masculinity. And then you had the feminists with a capital F, not feminine, but feminists, who have always struck me as hating the fact that the biological dice throw gave them two X's instead of an XY. And they just like men. And then you had the other type that thought of having a man or being in the institution of marriage was being in a condition of slavery. Then you had the LGBTQ crowd who was against the masculine imagery anyway for their particular reasons. And then you had these hippie types who were running around talking about, yeah, man, war is the man thing, or it's a man thing. Man is about war, and they were raised because the women have to raise their sons like girls, so they will safely vent their aggressions with emotion that can come out instead of holding it inside and being so tight, uptight, and under control. And then you started no war toys, no cap pistols. It's okay for boys to play with dolls. And unisex child rearing, unisex child dressing, unisex child hairstyles, and you can see that even now on these Liberty Mutual commercials, who are very much exemplars of some of the worst things in the country right now, but it's what it is. So all of this comes together, and that crew a part of it, wound up, interestingly enough, being attracted to the entertainment industry, the media industry, and they took it over in the late 60s when color television was driving the old-time, big-time movie studios out of business. They figured out that black people were getting that I'm black and I'm proud thing. So if they gave the black people some movies, they could get some fast, heavy cash flow into the Hollywood industry and save the studios. They did, so they put them in charge. And then people were going around still going, I'm black and I'm proud, wearing dashikis and afros. And then in 1971, 72, they came out with Superfly, which is just exactly like this movie Black Panther. And there were lines of black people 2 blocks long to get in to see that movie, all over the country. And then in 6 months, everybody, man, I got to move some of this cocaine, man. Superfly, man. Yay, man. You check that out. And then everybody started pressing their hair like the hero in there, an actor played by an actor named Rod O'Neal. And see, the hero was a successful drug dealer. And they had pimp mobiles, hoes, and all this other stuff. They glamorized that. And you didn't see any more dashikis and afros. You started seeing fried hair again, fly girl, fly guy, and it went to hell. Now, you've got Black Panther, and I've looked at what they sent out to Viacom stockholders, and they were excusing the fact that Paramount, which is a Viacom subsidiary, did not produce this Marvel movie. And it was transferred to Disney because Disney was in financial trouble and they needed the money. And they're actually discussing with the stockholders how we need Disney's facilities as animators. So we need to save them. So the African Americans will flock to this movie in droves, and we will be able to get a record box office. It's scary that white people know us so badly that they can predict what we're going to come to see and put it right out there. So we do, and we're so proud. And yet when you go in there, the character Killmonger, who is a villain, is the one talking about third world revolution and uniting all minority and third world causes in the world and coming up as a power block to offset what has been done to them by the colonialists. They have an advanced technology that's about 500 years ahead of everybody else in the world, so they want to use it to set up Africa as a unified front so it becomes a world power. So what happens in the end of the movie? Oh, you're supposed to be good Negroes. Good Panther, the good king, decides to give all of this to the white world. After, and then the brother, they made a counterculture hero out of Killmonger. When he's dying, he says, just bury me in the sea with some of my righteous relatives killed themselves because they refused to be slaves and jumped off the boat. And we go in there and we go, you don't even understand it. We got a problem with no dads in the black community, so what do you see in Panther? All of the warriors are women. Okay? He looks stylish. They have on sleek gowns and everything else, and he's all vined out tuxedos. They go out to the club, and they walk in looking like he's a pimp and they the hoe. But then you listen to them, he's not really the king because the women are giving him instructions. Don't do this, don't do that, you're wrong, you can't do this. Well, if you want to be like that, what's this? And then they have a fight in the end. It's not black folk versus white folk or people of the enemy. It's one group of affiliated tribesmen against the women folk of the other. And the women portrayed as kicking the brothers in the butt.
You know that the Black Panther now is the highest grossing superhero film of all time domestically.
I know, ain't it a shame? And that's what they do.
That's a template now, right? That's a template. We got all these Amazon women, like Wonder Woman too. And Jedi.
Wonder Woman in Justice League. They have Superman, Batman, Mariner. They've got Cyborg. They've got the Flash. And guess who the leader is? Wonder Woman. They just started today on the military channel. New series, Women Warriors in History. How about somebody pays attention to motherhood again? I was in a restaurant yesterday, and I look up and this kid charges down the aisle over in the bar section at full speed. Then here comes another charging down the aisle. I was like, where are they going? I looked over the barrier. All of the women are just sitting there paying no attention to these kids charging through the restaurant, almost running over customers. They go back in the kitchen. And finally, the woman manager had to grab them and say, look, ladies, could you please, you can't have it. They just chilling. They just having a good time. You know, don't be bothering with them. You know, they ain't going to hate nothing. There's no order. You see, I love women. And firmly, I've always been of the opinion that it's our duty as men to protect womanhood and promote manhood. I got raised when I listened to the older men tell me, son, act like a man. Boy, men don't act like that. Boy, this is how a man acts. Boy, stop crying. That's nothing to cry about. So they told me we have a right to tell you how to act like a man and a right to demand that you do so because somebody demanded that we act like men. We got where we are because there were men, so you get where you are because there are men. You have a duty to the next generation to act like men and also a concomitant duty to demand of them that they act like men. That seems to have gone by the wayside. There's no dad in the pad, and that's bad. And that's why you get these little cretins going off in the hallway and these little gang-banging thugs that are going off down in the hood all the time. And you know what my definition is of one of these hood rats that likes to play OG?
What's that?
It's a lesbian in a boy's body.
I can see that.
A lesbian is raised as a girl, and she likes girls sexually, but she's got girl plumbing. These hood rats get raised by girls as girls. They like girls, but they've got boy plumbing. If a fairy godmother waved the magic wand and a lesbian woke up in a boy's body, there'd be no difference. Not getting on lesbians. If you want to do that, that's your business. But I just object to the fact that we have a limited pool of boys from which to recruit men. And once you recruit them, making men of them is a very arduous, ongoing task that has to start in infancy and go through until we die. We have to keep reminding ourselves of what it means to be a man. That needs to come from the voice of the village, the media. That needs to come from the neighbors, the neighborhood, the aunt, uncle, dad, granddad, relatives, friends, associates, and everybody. But we don't get it. They're still men, but they're bewildered because all of the media's telling them, no, that's not the way to go.
Have you read that New York Times article from last week? They talk about even if a black boy was born into a rich family, he still fares poorly in the world as a grown-up. Have you seen that? What's your take on that?
Okay, there's still a thing going on. Like, for example, everybody's heard of George Washington Carver, right? Great black scientist. You know, he got adopted by a white family. They had a daughter. So you know what they did the first day after they adopted him?
Yeah, castrated him, right?
They castrated him so he wouldn't bother the daughter.
Right.
We had a unit. That happens sometimes. It's ideation. you get the idea. So you can't escape what's on television.
Right.
The ideation you see for black folk on TV when they put us on there, what are you doing? You being a gangster, drug dealer. Yo, man, like Jamal, man, you like check it, man. You know, that's the imagery they get.
Right. You already got a reboot of Superfly. I forgot to tell you, have you seen the trailer for it? It's coming out this summer. They got the hip hop version of Superfly. You
got to be kidding.
I'm serious. They got Future the rapper doing the soundtrack like he's Curtis Mayfield, and instead of New York, it's in Atlanta. It's said in Atlanta.
You have to be kidding.
I'm not kidding you. Got those sir. Same old thing.
Oh,
New Superfly.
Yes. Guys, just destroy us.
Yeah. Black Panther come out now. We got the Superfly again.
And you know what's so bad? Also in this Panther movie, they've got some direct quotes from the Panther Party platform in that movie, and they make it something that the villain says. So the movie's named Black Panther, but the real actually existent Black Panther Party was composed of some brothers who were trying to make the black community safe from the predations of wrong-acting police, let's just put it that way. They actually blasphemed them by taking what they were saying, direct quote from the Panther Party mantra, and they were making them the words of a villain. Also, interestingly enough, the father of Killmonger is part of the royal house. But see, to help out black folk in America, he moves to the projects in America. So Killmonger is one of the few young guys who actually has a father in that area, and the father is trying to be righteous about it. He sounds like Malcolm X. So what happened? Here we have the show up of the good Black Panther's daddy who confronts his brother with, why are you trying to get people free instead of keeping what we have secret? Why are you trying to free up other people in the world with what we selfishly have been hiding? He says it's our duty. So guess what? The good boy Panther's daddy killed his brother, Cain and Abel, all over again because he wants to free the third world. So, of course, Killmonger is a little boy, finds this out, so he dedicates himself. So what is it? He's brilliant. He graduates from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology at 19 years old. He's a genius. He then decides so he can become a real badass. He joins the Navy, signs up for the SEALs, and he's so efficient at killing, they nickname him Killmonger. He is ruthless, yes, but so was Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. You know, Washington was the spy master during the Revolutionary War, too. So was Abraham Lincoln, so was Lenin, so was Trotsky, so was Stalin, so was Ho Chi Minh, so was Mao Zedong, so was Fidel Castro, so was Che Guevara, you name it, they act like that. So you got a real revolutionary trying to free the people. Mandela was like that. You take Jomo Kenyatta with the Mau Mau, he was like that. Here you got another one, and they make him the villain. They even put, and see if you are hip to history, you can hear some of the very quotes from these people that have been doing this put in the mouth of the villain. You have this subtle imagery where the audience is identifying with something that is actually negative to them. Don't be one of these Negroes or these militant blacks who's trying to get free. You need to be one of these good Negroes who gives everything to the outside. Just like we got our music stolen from us, a whole lot of art stolen from us, a whole lot of art stolen from us, stolen ourselves, and we didn't have the gumption to go die. But then you have Killmonger saying, I'm done. Just bury me in the ocean where the righteous jump off the boat so they wouldn't be slaves. And you got these black youth cheering for him dying.
Mm.
They're pulling. Come on, Black Panther, kill him, kill him. Like, fool, do you get the idea who's the good guy in this? That's like if they made a realistic movie about a Nat Turner or Mark Vasey, and you got black folks cheering for the slave master or the house members that turned him in.
Hey, you got some black folks like that.
Yeah, but that's what they engineered with what they did in the art. Absolutely pathetic.
I mean, yeah. Well, let me ask you this then. What do you think about what's going on with South Africa with the so-called land reform, taking the land back from the white South Afrikaners, what they call themselves, and giving it back to the people there?
Well, here's what's going to happen. So you have the multiple thefts there. South Africa is not a case of the white folk coming in and subjugating the Africans. What actually happened is there's a thing called the Bantu migration, where the Bantu, who are what we think of as African, got to South Africa about the exact same time the white Europeans got there. What lived there before both groups arrived were Aboriginals who look like the Australian Aborigines. They don't really have vowels and consonants. They tend to click when they talk and do weird kind of things. That is strange. So what goes on is the Bantu start conquering these indigenous people. The white folks start conquering them from the other end. Then Shaka Zulu arises, and he sets up the Zulu Nation by dint of his superior war-fighting tactics and strategies and training and equipment. And the Zulu conquer everybody else. Then they run up against the white folks. And in 1876, at Isangawanda, the Tetsuweu, who was the high king of the Zulu then, his battalions whipped the crap out of the English army that was sent to subdue them. They didn't just do in 200-some people like Custer got done in by Sitting Bull. They wiped out multiple thousands of English soldiers. Wow. So it was a real hard-fought war, and the English signed a treaty with the Zulu that guarantees them the right of self-governance and to keep their own tribal weapons. Meanwhile, with the people that the Zulu and the Europeans had conquered, they practically got enslaved. They became the ANC with whom Mandela was associated. So the Zulus said, I'm sorry, we're not going to let Mandela and the ANC run us because we enslaved them, we whipped their butts. The Europeans said, oh, they have been enslaved, we whipped their butts too. So at this point, you had a situation that had been preceded about 100 years ago when the English took over South Africa from the Boers, who were Dutch. The Dutch had settled there first. So the English take all this land from the Dutch. And then what winds up happening, the English sign a treaty with the Zulu. All three parties, the Dutch, the English, and the Zulu, subjugate the rest of the Bantu and the Aboriginals in the area, few of whom now remain. So we have this poisonous thing coming up now. So there's a whole lot going on there that has not been resolved, and that's what's shaking out right now. Some people are going to die, and I guess they'll have to kill each other so they can get it out of their system. Now, I had the privilege of meeting the young man who is next in line to be the High King of the Zulu and of Swaziland, which has been their homeland, and they still control it, and his brother, half brother, who will be his prime minister. They're both going to grad school out on the West Coast, and they were working on their PhDs. One was going to UCLA, the other one was going to USC, and the deal was is when they got their PhDs, Dad would abdicate so they could take over. Now, both of them killed their lions at 13 with a wooden spear, no iron head. Before they can become king and prime minister, they have one final test to take. under supervised conditions. One of them will get an iron-tipped spear, and the other one will get a sword. They get to choose who gets what. And they will have to kill a Cape buffalo that is deemed to be the hardest terrestrial animal on the planet to kill. So the catch is if anything happens to the king to be, they just immediately execute his brother and start all over again.
What? Whoa.
The reason is so the brother can't arrange an accident, so he becomes king instead of the designated party.
Wow.
So they'll have to pass this test before they can take the throne. Now, they can talk American black. Yeah, man. Judge is cold-blooded, man. What happened? So and so. They can sound like that. Judge Brown, it is a shame that you do not have the time to come over and visit us in our country. We will make life very interesting for you.
Wow. So this is like Wakanda, like Killmonger there. He do that American Negro dialect. Okay.
Yeah, they can do both. And it's interesting. We were running around with them, and the American Secret Service was guarding them, so we pull up to this hotel. I mean, really exclusive LA type hotel. So they walk in, Secret Service is there, to make sure nothing happens, and they're looking. Thomas, look, this is such a nice anteroom to the toilet. Don't you have one like this in your palace? No. That's called what? It looks like the anteroom to our toilet in one of our vacation homes. You must come sometime. You will enjoy it. They're talking about the grand ballroom, right? I thought they were pulling my leg until they showed me one of these mansions they live in. I said, man, that's a nice luxury hotel. Oh, no. That is my brother's getaway palace when he has need to get away and do his homework, and so he can write his dissertation. Guys, you live there? Oh, that's in the judge about. You must come and visit. That's the tell me. Is it true, brothers, that all of the virgins in the country have to parade? Yeah, they must go naked in front of the king. We are too, since we is there. Father was urging us to pick a bride, but we said, no, we'll wait until later. 14th woman. He said, take a look at the pictures. We brought you something to look at. I said, oh, yeah. And see, the interesting thing is, it's not just the African women. Any woman under 22 is deemed to be, 24 is deemed to be a virgin. That includes the Asian and the European women. So in this line parading with ceremonial beads, which don't cover much of anything at all, stark naked are all these women, black, white, and yellow, and all kinds of mixtures, and fine as you can imagine, parading in front of the king, because that's part of the ceremonial thing they have to consent to if they go there. That's man, y'all got it going on.
Wow. That's amazing.
And they talked about it too. I do not understand, Judge Brown. What is this diminution of masculinity that we see in the United States? It's like they have a phobia with being men.
What'd you say, Judge? Me tell them.
They were right. And they were in their early 20s.
Wow.
He said, I wanted to go see some of these gangsters. What do you call them, OGs? But they act like ill-tempered, rude women.
Wow. And these guys kill lions at the age of 13, so they don't, they ain't worried about it.
They ain't worried about it.
They kill someone's daddy at 13. The hell with it. Wow.
So, I mean, they had some negative things to say about what they saw.
What about the women? What do you think about the black American women?
They think they're rude, ill-tempered, ill-mannered, and totally out of control. And as mothers, they are not dealing with their responsibilities as mothers to ensure that their sons become proper men, warriors, and providers. And they've done that most egregiously by acting as sluts by not having a husband, at least to start with.